first of all, thank you everybody so much for coming. If this is your first time to the Design Dialogues series, welcome. For those who are returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for listening in every month. Today, we have a really exciting panel. We're going to be talking about wellness by design. So wellness, not only in the outdoor world, we're also going to talk a little bit about the indoor world, but this is something that I'm starting to hear more and more across, the entire industry and from homeowners as well as professional partners and dealer partners. And it seems to be something that's on everybody's mind. So I'm really excited to dig in with some really amazing experts that I'll introduce in a moment. So through today's panel, we're hoping to cover a variety of different topics, all surrounded around wellness. But we want to define what wellness is in design, how to integrate wellness principles, how to select wellness-oriented materials and specifications, and hopefully we can talk about some future trends that we can look out for and how to be able to incorporate this into more design projects. So I'll start off by introducing myself. I'm Ashley Smith. I'm the Director of Architect and Designer Partnerships at Plena Group, which is the ownership group of Urban Bonfire in Kalamazoo. So I work with 2 outdoor kitchen design and manufacturing companies. I've been doing this for just over 9 years. Wellness is something that's a little bit new to me. And so that's why I wanted to invite some experts today. So you'll see the 3 panelists that are on the screen, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So Alex, if you want to start with a little introduction on who you are.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexander Suvajac. I'm a Canadian-based designer, trained in landscape architecture and industrial design. I run a garden studio practice on the west coast of Canada, on Salt Spring Island, and focus primarily on sensitively designed landscapes in Canada and abroad. And our projects aim to kind of immerse oneself in the subtle and regional aspects of any given place. I love working with architects and interior designers to help create a holistic vision for a given project. Largely inspired by the perennialist movement lately and kind of the subtle details of Japanese and Korean design. So those are some of the threads in our work. And I'm just really looking forward to today's chat with our panelists.
Thanks, Alex. I will be sharing everybody's websites at the end too. So for anybody who's attending here, you'll be able to check out all of the different work that these people are doing, which is really amazing. Erika, would you like to go next?
Yes. Thank you, Ashley. And thank you, Kalamazoo, Urban Bonfire, and everybody on this call. I'm looking forward to the conversation. A little bit about me. I have a strong background in appliance and decorative plumbing specifications, specifically with a variety of manufacturers and a dealer here on the West Coast. Most currently, though, I am a proud member of the Perfect Wellness Group. I help run the custom sales for commercial and residential on the West Coast. And we pride ourselves in being a beautiful spa specialty portfolio group that brings some of the latest and greatest wellness products from Europe to North America. So I have a lot of, it's a lot of fun. I get to work with designers and architects specifically on bringing their visions to life and collaborating on wellness and what that looks like for the future for their projects. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Erika. And Veronica, do you want to give a little introduction to yourself?
Yes, I'm Veronica Schreibeis Smith. I'm the founder of Vera Iconica Architecture, and we do everything from master planning down to interior design in the Mountain West. And our focus and specialty has been on how the environment impacts our health and well-being. So we have coined the term wellness architecture about 15 years ago with the Global Wellness Summit. So I volunteer a lot for the Global Wellness Summit, sit on their board, and then also the Global Wellness Institute, where we do a lot of research on, again, why something in your environment and is going to impact your life, and how we as designers can kind of use that as tools in our tool belt to help give our clients the outcome they want. So Ashley, thank you so much for inviting me here today. We were blown away when we first met you at a Kalamazoo and bonfire event. So just really happy to be here and share with everybody.
So happy to have you. I was going to say you were kind of the inspiration for this panel, if I'm going to be honest, because when we were talking about wellness architecture, this was something that was so new to me. And then ever since we had that conversation, I don't know, what was that, like 5 months ago, I've just heard it more and more. So it was like, this is something that we need to talk about. Now we need to bring on Design Dialogue. So I'm really excited to get into it. We'll have some pictures going on in the background, but for the meantime, I have some questions for you all. So Veronica, I'll let you start answering this first one. And I'm going to start really generally, but also kind of, an existential question. What does wellness mean to you?
Yeah, so we actually have taken a lot of time to help define the term wellness and well-being, because early on, a lot of people thought wellness, there was an immediate association with fitness or spa. And wellness is really how you're taking care of yourself, your physical health and well-being, your mental well-being. And the difference between wellness and well-being is actually one's own perception of their wellness, whereas wellness is what you're doing to take care of yourself. So it's the answer of if somebody's well or not really is on them, right? It's a matter of perception.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely something that we've had in discussions. It's so unique to everybody. And that's why I wanted to start with this question, because I think it helps the audience too, as to, well, what does wellness mean? And the fact that the three of you are going to have different answers, it justifies that maybe they have a different answer for themselves as well. And that's what we're trying to get to the root of here. And that's all of your clients will have different definitions about what wellness is as well. And that's really what we're trying to achieve. So, Erika, do you want to answer that question next? What does wellness mean to you?
Absolutely. And yeah, I agree. I think from my perspective, as well as the perspective, a lot of the collaboration I work from, it's the practice of wellness. It's generally, we think wellness through marketing, it's been focused on the fitness or, boutique channels, but we really need to look at wellness from a holistic standpoint, including, spiritual, mental, physical, environmental, because all of these things play a pivotal role in that balance in our lives and the overall wellness that we are striving from either an individual growth or as a community, as a cultural growth. So wellness to me is a very exciting term because it can mean so many things to so many different people. And it really starts that conversation of lifestyle and goal setting for each individual.
Something that stood out to me, Erika, when we had a past conversation about this was you said social wellness, which is something that I had not considered at all before, but that does play such a factor because we are social beings, and considering what that means and how we can integrate that into kind of our everyday lives, I think is something pretty profound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alex, do you want to take a stab at this as to round this question off?
Yeah, I think, just to punctuate that, the kind of fundamentals of, living in balance. I think even as designers, kind of what we bring to our practice and our mental state, our wellness regime can help us as designers and help us be more sensitive as we approach, reading our projects, our clients. I think in cultivating space, it's a lot about creating spaces to reflect and pause and be present. There's so many benefits to just the natural environment in itself. I think if we can help create atmospheres that support our mind, body, and spirit, this can be just so beneficial. And I know in our own work, a big cue comes from the subconscious, and trying to be in touch with, what would somebody intuitively feel in this space, and try to kind of cater to those subconscious needs to create spaces for relaxation, comfort in nature. So that's kind of wellness for me. And yeah, just being able to connect to that serenity in nature And I think there becomes a dialogue between our own sense of being in that.
I love that. And I find that really shows in your work, is that you can see that you're letting nature talk for itself. Nature in itself is inherently involved in wellness. And so incorporating that as naturally as you can, while kind of adding some of those creature comforts and making it really intentional, I think really stands out, which is why I'm a fan of your work as well.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, environmental psychology, there's so much evidence based on, the benefits of nature. I think it's how we can, make it comfortable for our clients and just in general to get us more in touch with that.
Yeah, I certainly think there's overlap. We're hearing a lot of biophilic design or biophilia. And I feel like the wellness and biophilia world do have a lot of overlap. And I'm glad that we're seeing more and more of that incorporated into the everyday, that these are really getting considered in pretty much all projects. Mm. So as a follow-up question to this, Erika, I'm going to start with you. How do you approach the conversation on wellness with customers? If somebody is talking about it for the first time or trying to figure out how to incorporate more wellness in every day, how do you approach that conversation?
No, it's a great question. I think it's really about, first of all, creating that relationship of trust with who you're working with, diving into their lifestyle. What have they been practicing to date? What's worked? What hasn't worked? Also asking, what are their goals? Is this more of, a novice user looking to become more of a practitioner in the wellness space, specifically with like either thermal wellness or contrast wellness? And then presenting different options on design to elicit or evoke that either emotional, spiritual, or physical enhancement within the space. So I think it's coming from a place of curiosity, wanting to learn more about the client or ownership in the project. What are their goals for the project in terms of that outcome? And then curating or tailoring a custom ritual or experience towards that. Because as we mentioned previously with the other question, it is a tailored experience. It's not one size fits all. So it's really important to have that connection with the client or the ownership to understand what their long-term goals are, and then being that credible resource to help guide them through that as a concierge piece. That's something we pride ourselves in, to come in as a collaborator with architects and designers to help provide that expertise, because there's a lot of great information out there. We're in the age of information, and we're at the trajectory of wellness in North America. It's really just booming, and I'll probably reference the Global Wellness Institute, Veronica, a couple times because I'm a follower of all of your research. But it's about being that kind of leader in the space and just starting the conversation. So hopefully that helps answer your question, Ashley.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, any insight as to, how you start the conversation is, I think, really helpful to everybody who's on the call. Veronica, I'm going to send this to you next, and I'm going to start it off saying the one thing, or one of the things that really stood out when I was talking to you and your team, was that you turn, oh my gosh, what was it? Routine into ritual. And I feel like that played a little bit on what Erika said, and maybe that will be part of what you're going to talk about here. But that's something that has stuck with me since our conversation, that I've tried to kind of incorporate. So if you want to take a stab at this question, how do you approach the conversation on wellness?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love what both Alex and Erika have been saying, is it's a holistic approach. And a lot of people are willing to talk about the environment or the physical aspects because they're easily measured. Less people are willing to talk about the emotional or cognitive, or God forbid, spiritual aspect of what the built environment does. But there is evidence, and there is actually ways that you can design to put these numinous or noetic or moments in your design. So that what we're saying is that we're designing places and spaces that actually move you emotionally or spirit, that where you feel nourished and full in those spaces. And so when we start talking with clients, we have all of these things that we can do, but I think that it's really important to meet people where they are and to really play off their definition of what wellness means. So we're, if you go into a gym, and you're like 5'1" and petite, and you're just there for your like health because you're a 40-year-old female, they're not going to give you like the 22-year-old football male squatting program, right? So you have to, and both are good, but it's only good if it's appropriate for that person. So really looking at place, climate, what is the guest experience if we have a hospitality client, or if it's a residential client, what are they aspiring to do in their life or with their lifestyle, and how can we design something that really supports it? And that's where it gets into what you were saying, Ashley, is when we understand the routine that somebody's going to do or the activity they're going to do, how can we elevate it into a ritual, something that helps be a little bit more present, more gratitude, more appreciation, and just really absorb this beautiful experience that they're able to do. Because life is too short to go through with thinking about one thing and rushing through. And how can we kind of slow down life in this crazy digital era, because we get bombarded all the time. We need those moments, and we need something to happen in our daily routine that uplifts us.
I love that. So since we spoke, I've heard myself say life is too short for bad tea so many times because tea is something that I really enjoy. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I take a lot of enjoyment out of drinking tea. And if I have a bad cup, I pour it out. I start over. Life's too short for a bad cup of tea.
Love that.
Alex, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. With how we approach the conversational wellness. Interestingly, we sometimes don't talk directly to wellness, but the inverse, what is maybe impeding creating a sense of wellness or serenity in a space. This is often the case in residential projects that might have a context that isn't as desirable. Maybe it's traffic noise, or that neighbor's yellow house, or any number of things, noisy air conditioning units. Looking at the landscape and trying to see these as opportunities to create a new net positive to the overall space can start to distill the overall atmosphere into something that is more supportive for our well-being. Because I do like in feng shui, things that, in feng shui, it's these kind of like arrow of, well, I won't maybe get into too much of that, but it's not my area of expertise, but essentially something that we perceive as a detriment. It could be, your dirty garage that you walk by every day. Subconsciously, we know it's a, messy garage. It weighs on us, opposed to like this, space that is orderly and has a kind of energetic quality that uplifts us. So, you can see in these images, it's hard to find flaw with the surroundings. And that's done through this kind of curated approach to screening and setting up focals and just things that, bring our attention in a more tranquil way. So yeah, that's part of that conversation. And I'm hoping, as this, the industry is so big right now globally, that it becomes more of a talking point with projects and with clients in general.
Yeah, I certainly hope that as well. We can all benefit from a little bit of slowing down and appreciating where we are in those little moments in every day. For the next question, Veronica, I'll start with you on this one. Is there any popular wellness features that you like to include in any projects? I don't know, if it doesn't necessarily need to be a particular product, but maybe it's a space that you always create for your clients, or if there's any, I'm going to say feature, but it can be a broad range of different things.
Yes. Well, there are many. And as you were saying earlier, because it's personalized and customized, it's really endless. We always talk about designing experiences and that architecture's the medium and interior design is the medium that we're using, right? But we're focused on how somebody's moving through their daily life and how we're elevating that. So as many different people as there are, that's how many different solutions there are. The one thing that I would say is a trend, but I think that some trends come and go and you don't even remember until you look back on them. Some trends morph into permanence. They're hot, they're all the rage, and then they become permanent. And I think that a lot of the very beautiful images that Erika has been providing that are looping through are what I'm noticing the most people requesting, which is a spa or hydrothermal circuit. A lot of people are very in tune with the healing benefits of infrared, and more people with cryotherapy and cold plunges. So we're seeing more people looking at how they might integrate that into their homes, hospitality. Those projects are more about completing a spa system that may be lacking. So, but they have the amenity basically because people's understanding of how to, what the healing benefits are and maybe how to go through a hydrothermal circuit were different or just not there. The sauna felt good, so you used it. But now as people become more educated and more discerning on what they're doing and why they're doing it, how it's impacting their recovery, their longevity, whatever some of their health goals might be, they're realizing that, oh my God, I have the hot, but I don't have the cold and I need to do something about it. So spa, wellness, sauna, hydrothermal circuit is really the number one thing that we're seeing people request and want to develop and refine. If they have it, they want something that performs a little bit better for them.
Erika, is what you're seeing, does it kind of align, I assume, probably with what Veronica's saying as well, or you're on slightly different places as well? So do you have a different perspective?
No, I think that resonates what Veronica is saying. What we're seeing in private wellness is more of that curiosity and design on contrast therapy, which goes back to what she mentioned with differences outside of just a traditional sauna. So infrared, even red light, different wavelength therapies, as well as contrast therapies as it relates to hydro or cold therapy. Most people come in thinking, I need a cold plunge, but once you start talking to them, you realize there are other options out there that we can expand on to get you the most benefit. And cold plunges are great, but we also have water experiences, hydro experiences, canap experiences. I mean, there's a lot of way to really elevate and maximize the benefit once you get to know that client's needs. I will say the trendy thing right now is definitely the infrared. Everybody's really going for that. But you have to come in as, the practitioner or the credible expert to help guide them to make sure that that's the right choice for them, or maybe it's a hybrid choice. So there's a lot of great options out there, and we are still in that infancy when it comes to private wellness. The great thing is about hospitality and commercial is that they're really starting to push the boundaries of what we know in terms of ritual and having that full healing experience in a very well laid out space. So that's pushing a lot of the boundaries in terms of residential design and just getting the knowledge out there for a lot of our clients. So I will say it's been exciting. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry,
I was going to ask. No, you're good. I was going to ask if in the past, I don't know if you've seen a shift in consumer behavior, and if people are coming to you saying specifically they want, like I want the sauna and I want the cold plunge and I want the infrared, if they're specifically asking for these items, or are they still relying on you to kind of tell them what is going to be the best option for them, for their projects? Is there a shift there? Like, are people more knowledgeable? Yeah.
They are coming in with a base level of knowledge, but the information is out there. Whenever you have a time in innovation or a time in an industry where knowledge becomes prevalent and everybody's kind of at this novice level of learning, you have to also be discerning about the level of knowledge that you're receiving as well. So we do have to come in and help guide them on the right choice. And to everybody's defense, a lot of the times the clients we're speaking with, they don't quite understand the different performance benefits of a thermal wet cabin versus a thermal dry cabin. And neither one's wrong. They actually work best when partnered together. But there's a lot of, pre-existing bias that we're having to come in and provide a larger education for. And I love the topic of cold plunge. It's my favorite because at least it's getting people talking about that there are other contrast therapies available to them, accessible, that they can put in their homes. And it's also starting the topic of how does this not just benefit me? How does it benefit my family? How does it benefit the people in my life? And going back to that social bathing aspect, we're also seeing that push the boundaries of what it means to join in on these different kind of wellness benefits with people in their immediate life. So it's not just like in kitchens used to be hidden away from everyone, and now we're seeing these beautiful wide open spaces. More people are wanting to engage in this cultural aspect of joining in, and we're also seeing that consumer behavior change in residential, where they're wanting larger wellness spaces so they can actually train and receive the benefit with their friends and family directly.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Alex, I haven't given you the opportunity to talk about this question yet. I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add to that, if there's any wellness features, or just to add on to anything that Erika and Veronica has been saying. We're going off topic, I know, or going off script, I should say, but this is what panels are all about.
Yeah. I would say like the placement of, like, in some ways, these items that people are adding to their landscape are entities in themselves. They're a destination, and a part of that is, we spoke about that kind of ritual. There's also the journey and the threshold, let's say, as you enter that space, from, let's say, you're coming from your office, or you're busy, busy inside with the kids, to make that journey through maybe a scenic path, or essentially your, just how the landscape is holding that object in a way becomes another experience, and a way of kind of shedding the stresses and readying you for that experience in the cold therapy, or the steam, etc. So, with that, I think an interesting, I'm not sure if it's a trend, but I would say it's probably nearing a trend now. This idea of, like, our gardens are less becoming this place where we have all this mulch and plants dotted around, and more of an echoing of the landscape around us, and feeling more naturalistic in its own right. And, these destinations then become that much more invigorating and just serene in that regard. Just feeling like they're in a very intentional space.
Feeling like it belongs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Are there, when you're working on projects, are there certain materials that you prefer to incorporate? Like, especially in outdoors, obviously we're a bit more limited in the materials that we can use. But when you're thinking of wellness, like, what are the materials that you like to incorporate the most into your projects, or plants, or anything of that nature?
Yeah, natural materials, for good reason, are so, top of the list. There's obviously a premium with cost there, but the longevity is just second to none. And I think as we get beyond kind of the surface of just like, that's a natural material or it's a premium material, I think we look at how does that material have a story that maybe connects us to our space. So this stone is quarried locally and it tells us something about the region. Or instead of that stone maybe being just honed and polished, you're seeing examples of it in its natural fractal state. And that kind of connects us back to, almost like the structure of the world we live in. And I think when materials are used well, we are engaged to kind of take a closer look, to touch them, to really be in presence with that material. And that brings us, I think, out of our head. It brings us out of our stresses. It brings us into the moment. And that's something that, animated by, the wind and the light, has a depth that is a power of designing and being in the outdoors. How are those materials when they're frosted, or how do they feel in the hot summer sun? They're still conducive to my relaxation and comfort, so to speak. So looking at materials in that way, I think can support our wellness, because ultimately it comes down to the kind of sense of comfort and that engagement with our landscape.
I think too, what you were saying kind of made me think a lot about intention. And I think as an advantage, one of the advantages of being a designer is that like every material you choose is with intent. Like there's a reason that you chose that material. And the more natural materials, or, different materials that we can bring in that give that feeling of wellness, I think just it enhances the end user's day just by the material itself. I'm having a hard time getting this out because I'm thinking it through as I go along, but I love the intention that's put behind that, and how there's so much thought into, just touching a natural stone in the sunlight, and how that warmth, like what does that bring you? How does that make you kind of connect with it? I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Just quickly on that point, that idea of like, does this material selection support the intent, or maybe in wellness, let's say, support the restorative quality of this project, or does it detract? And then likewise, is the format detracting, or is it supporting the finish? You can kind of run almost every question that comes up back through that kind of design brief or your original intent. And then with a series of answers to those questions over the holistic nature of a project, you then get a kind of integrative solution, hopefully, in the end.
It's, when you put it that way, it can sound to a beginner like me a little bit overwhelming. It's like you have to question every choice that you're making from a variety of different angles.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it's a good thing.
That's
this is why we have professionals,
design.
and this is why we're talking to the experts. Veronica, I'll post this next question to you. What's your advice to someone who's looking to learn more about wellness and incorporating it into their practice and designs? Like we said, there are so many choices and so much consideration that goes into all of this. So what would your advice be to somebody who's looking to put more of a focus on this in their design practice? You're on mute.
Oh, thank you. One would be, it's, in some way it's rewording what one of the points Alex was just making. It's to get out of your head and get into your heart. A lot of times, everybody, but we feel pressure to be doing the next thing or the right thing, and that makes decision making very difficult. If you can tap into your intuition and keep things simple, the power to trust that, to keep those decisions fun and enjoyable is really important. And an example of that advice might be, if you start treating the materials in your life like food or healthy eating, which is, the closer to nature the material is that you're selecting, and the less adulterated or complicated it is by the manufacturing process or shipping it all the way to you, so the more local it is, the healthier it's going to be for you and the planet. So if you want to make a wellness decision, sure, you can get into a mess of reading SDS cut sheets and doing this research and doing that research. But if you just keep it simple and you follow your gut and you close your you close your eyes and you think, oh, like, okay, this is the space, this is the material. Does it feel good? Is what I'm creating beautiful and feel good and it's natural? You have something, and you really don't need to make it much more complicated than that. It will become more sophisticated as time goes on, but it doesn't need to be complicated.
So your gut kind of leads you, and then it educates you a little bit as you're going along. I'm assuming as well. I'm sure you've come a long way in how you've listened to your gut through your career.
Yeah, we can nerd out on the scientific evidence of this or what neuroscience study showed here, but again, at the end of the day, intuition is wise, and I think that our rational mind is there to support our intuition. So if you don't have all the rational knowledge yet, know that you will, and keep following the intuition in the meantime.
I love that. That's amazing advice. Erika, do you have any advice to add to that as well, as to someone who's looking to incorporate it a bit more?
I just want to comment on what you just said, Veronica. I love the intuition comment, because it's not necessarily knowing rationally what, following your intuition, because it is a part of the journey. I believe in the journey. I really believe that's a part of the process, is taking the journey and learning more about yourself and how those materials incorporate. But that's something that really resonated with me. So thanks for sharing, because I agree. I think sometimes we just have to follow our gut and trust in our heart and our spiritual and our body. This is the direction we need to take the design or the practice, essentially. So with that being said, what did you ask, Ashley? Because now I'm completely drawing a blank.
That's okay. We've gone on, a few little tangents, which is the whole purpose. But what's your advice? What's your advice to someone who's looking to learn more about wellness and incorporating it into their practice and designs?
So it's, it comes back to what I originally said, just being curious, just having conversations. I will sometimes go to a coffee shop, and if I see somebody practicing a form of wellness that I'd like to practice, I was talking to Alex previously on this call how I started incorporating supplements into my life. I'm now taking vitamin D, and it's giving me a same effect as a caffeine would necessarily. So I'm looking at adjusting wellness in my life, but that all started from a conversation that I had with somebody else. So it's about constantly having conversations, realizing that we all just want to reconnect with ourselves and each other, and coming from a place of curiosity and learning. So I think to answer your question, that's probably where I would start.
Definitely seen that as a theme in your answers, is just being curious, which I think is amazing too. Like, we don't know everything there is to know, so why not be curious?
The information will become available. I mean, it always will come to light in terms of research and the technical, and there are some who enjoy that portion of it, knowing the technical, knowing exactly what kind of results they may be generating from certain wellness practices. But at the end of the day, you just have to follow, as Veronica said, your intuition on what feels right to you, whether that's a design that's more grounding or centered around breath work, or, whatever it may be. That's where you need to go with that wellness journey.
Awesome. Alex, do you have any advice to someone looking to incorporate it more into their practice?
Sure. To kind of touch on Veronica and Erika's points, I think we're all on some kind of wellness journey as individuals, and, to tap into your intuition, let's say, or to be more sensitive and aware when designing, kind of comes back to, I think, those fundamentals. So I would say do yoga, or find a wellness routine that works for you. Breath work is something that I'm really into lately, and I find it just so beneficial. I'm serious about how that kind of affects our work. Any kind of mindful practice, I think, is heightened by our own senses and sensitivities, and kind of cultivating that as well in an office environment and your personal work, your habits, your kind of, I think work culture of the past was all about kind of like really just driving hard. And now we're realizing the importance of, sleep in our rituals, or time to think, in work. Can having those comfy chairs in places where you can just look like you're not working, but really that is like conducive to bringing out your best when we are kind of centered and at peace. So I've made that a part of my process, and bring that intention into the work. And it's hard to quantify, but I think it will lead us in that direction. And then from that kind of wellness intent, there's just a plethora of kind of modalities that apply to design, whether that is, color therapy or aromatherapy, garden therapy, like therapeutic landscapes, environmental psychology. So you could kind of tap into these areas, building biology, certain things that are, even prevalent in a different design, what's called like a different design kind of category, can have cross-pollination ideas in your mind of like, well, how can we apply that to our particular approach to work? So that
I
would
get
be my...
At the end of the day, just to tie into what you're saying, there's so many different people who work on any given project, right? And as long as everybody, or at least the majority of the people, are thinking of wellness and making sure that they are making that a priority, then the project itself should feel quite holistic in that way. But sometimes you might be working against somebody who isn't prioritizing wellness, and I could see that being a bit of a challenge. But as long as people are starting to think of it, I think then we're on the right track to move forward. And design is all about collaboration at the end of the day, and staying curious and learning. So hopefully people are able to continue along that path. I do have one question that I think we'll end with. I know I've skipped around a bit, and I will say for the audience, if anybody does have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat now, and we can get to them in a few minutes as well, because I'll pose one more question to our panelists. And it's, what do you hope to see more of in 2025? Erika, I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I think social bathing. I am a huge proponent of communal well-being. And I see this beautiful shift from private wellness to more of that social component. And I like to use the example, you get off work, and instead of, going to the bar to grab a drink with some friends, maybe you're going on a hike. Maybe you're going to do pickleball, or maybe you're going to a bathhouse and you guys are enjoying a ritual together. So I really am excited for that component. I think as a community, as a culture, we're trying desperately to reconnect with others right now after, we've seen the boom with technology and what that allows in terms of advances, but also in terms of isolation. So I think a lot of people are looking for beautiful, rounded resources to reconnect with each other. And I think social wellness is a huge component of that. So whether that be, like I said, going on a hike with a group of friends, or finding a local bathhouse to go enjoy a good thermal benefit together, I'm more excited for that. And I think that's what I'm hopeful for this year and in the next 3 years specifically.
Okay, so not just 2025, but beyond that as well. Alex, do you have anything that you're hoping to see more of in 2025? Or beyond?
Yeah, or beyond. I think with our kind of fast pace of life and work, I think still trying to, have more spaces, even in the public realm, that, allow us to carve out time for our own patience and reflection, spaces to kind of slow down and calm our mind and hearts. I didn't kind of touched on this a little bit in our talk, but I think every landscape has a kind of repository of atmospheres, and looking to find those special moments in a particular space makes it unique in its own right. So places that are very site specific, whether that's globally or internationally, that it just speaks of the place, has its own identity, its own poetic quality. I'm just very drawn to that, and love seeing projects that are highlighting that story.
Amazing. Veronica, do you have anything that you hope to see more of over the next year or so, or many?
I would love to see complete elimination of single-use plastics and world peace. And on a more serious, but on a more relevant note, I guess, I lived abroad for years in different places, Germany, South Korea, and Peru. And one of the things that does is it helps you see people living differently or perceiving the world differently than you. And that really helps expand awareness. And, in one way, a blessing of COVID was that it forced us to be in this situation where we started noticing, many people started noticing more things about their building and their environment. And once you start doing that, you can't ever go back. So I think that started, 2020 to 2024. And what I would really like to see more of in 2025 is an expansion of that, where people see their environments in a different way and they are conscious about, is this diminishing my health and well-being, or is this a place where I love going and love being? And if it's not, with expanded awareness, there's a lot of things that people can do to be in control of their own environment. So at the end of the day, not everybody can afford to build their dream environment with professionals. But my message to people would be, continue your awareness, continue learning about how the environment's impacting you. And there is always something at any level. If you're 16 and you're stuck at home and you're not making choices, there's still things that you can do to help your environment. So just kind of that awareness and then going and doing something about it. Awareness and action is what I hope to see more of for 2025.
Amazing. I love that. That makes me think of something that I heard that really, really sticks with me. We do have a couple of questions that are coming in as well, but I'll just mention really quickly. So when you ask people what their favorite wine was or what their favorite meal was, and then they can tell you, they have an answer, and there's always like something really specific about it. But if you were to give them a blind taste test, they would not be able to pick out the wine or the meal because it was part of the experience of that time. And I think that really goes to show how much the environment, the social environment, the physical environment, the mental environment, just where you're at in that moment affects your memory of it and the taste of it, which is something that I think is really like deep if you really think about it. And yet we, enter into different environments all the time without thinking how it's going to affect us. And we're not taking into stock if it's going to be, make it maybe a negative experience or a positive experience. But I think being conscious of that kind of falls into what you were saying, Veronica, and can make a huge impact in our everyday.
Absolutely.
So we do have somebody who's just, saying to kind of check them out. We do have another message saying these images are stunning and very inspiring. Thank you all for a lovely break in my day thinking about wellness. So I hope a lot of people came away, feeling good after this message. We certainly touched on a lot of different topics. We don't have any specific questions in the chat, but I will leave time for people to add. And if any of the three of you have any finishing remarks or ending remarks that you would like to say, we do have about 5 minutes left if you'd like to do that.
I will just say, like, these conversations are great because this keeps the topic moving forward. And it's gotten me, talking with Alex and Veronica, thinking about other versions of wellness that maybe I hadn't approached before. So I always come away with these conversations with a little more knowledge and a little more encouragement and a little more excitement. So I would say this has been great, and just keep the conversation going, because it's really important that we all hear from different perspectives on this topic specifically, so we can continue to grow in this industry together.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things about panels, is that you get different perspectives, and even the panelists come away saying like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. So there's advantages hopefully to everybody. Somebody else just mentioned that they're super passionate about this subject, and thank you for an inspiring conversation. I do thank you, panelists. Veronica or Alex, if you have any last comments that you want to add, now's the time. But
I'll ask a question to our panelists, one directed at Alex. Alex, are you seeing any kind of return to like natural species, people asking you for that in particular because of their awareness, and edible landscapes?
Nice. Yeah. Thanks for the question. Natural landscapes for sure. I have clients who have purchased properties. Often there is an emotional connection to the land. And maybe it's a lot of work that has to happen on that property to build a new house or, create all this programming. But there is like a seed of an idea usually connected to that landscape. And it could be the quality of the trees, just the native vegetation. So it's looking at then kind of pulling more into that. There's always a kind of mix, like a kind of regionally appropriate planting type that supports what's happening, often in like a very native plants in particular thrive in their native habitat, but maybe up against the foundation of a house. Suddenly our Vancouver summer is now feeling like a Southern California summer for that plant. So there's always finding a balance, but then trying to create, just a cohesive feel that very much ties in and welcomes that surrounding native landscape. And then with edibles, I think, trying to integrate the edibles and break them out of their, culinary garden kind of space is also another thing that we love doing, bringing, herbs and edible plants and berries for kids to pick and the deers to eat, while still, having maybe a dedicated space that's, safe from the bunnies. Having your own food, growing your own food, watching the seasons, again, that sense of patience and just delight in your landscape are beautiful things. And it's nice to, like, clients are very both receptive, but also, introducing these needs for them in their life. So I hope to see more of that.
And then harvesting it and cooking it in your outdoor kitchen.
What's better? Yeah.
Good tie-in. We did have a question that came in too while you guys were talking, so I'll kind of pose this to the group. But do you think that this kind of design approach could be presented as timeless design? Veronica, I see you nodding your head, so I'm going to get you to answer first.
Anything that people fall in love with and that resonate with them on an authentic level will be timeless.
I love that. Does anybody have anything to add to that? That was like a mic drop.
I love that timeless kind of the point of I think things that are timeless are also quite sustainable. They're things that defy trends, and that's where the natural materials, that's where lines and proportions that just don't try to say too much, but in a way support their surrounding landscape. that really resonates with me. You know, there's always a place for technology, and a lot of these wellness, you know, the cold plunge therapy, and that there is so much technology in those elements themselves. But you know, the kind of integration of them can feel quite timeless, and I think that has a real strength in design.
Yeah, and I'll speak on mostly the thermal side of things with this question, but wellness is timeless. Wellness has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years across cultures all over the world. And even though it may seem new to integrate a lot of these ideas into our current designs or our environment or our lifestyles, they've been around longer than we could imagine, through many different lenses. So wellness is timeless. It's just how you perceive it and how you incorporate it in your environment and your design.
I think, I can't remember who mentioned it, and I apologize to who did, but there are some trends that are passing trends, and there's some trends that are here to stay. So I'm hesitant to even call this a trend, because I think it's just a new awareness of how we can impact how we feel about our everyday life. And I don't see that going away. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to incorporate that, you know, forevermore. Not that I'm biased, but here we are.
Yeah. And I'll probably, correct me if I get the statistic wrong, Veronica, because I got this from the Global Wellness, but by 2028, it's going to be a $9 trillion industry. So there's a lot of movement in this specifically. And it's not just thermal. We're talking about all components: spiritual, mental, physical, environmental, emotional. So it's an exciting space to be in. And it's really just about using your intuition to guide yourself through that specification process with clients or your own personal journey. So
amazing. All right, we have gone 2 minutes over time, so I'll give people just one more minute to see if they have any questions that they want to add. Otherwise, thank you so much to Veronica, Eric, and Alex. This has been a really amazing conversation. I appreciate you taking the time and talking to us about your wellness experience and answering all of my questions today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
thank you. Thank you.
And thanks, Erica and Alex. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
looking forward to many more conversations on the topic with you all.
I will do a small plug for my next design dialogue session, which is next month. So this is something that I do monthly and change the topic every month. Next month, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about kitchen design and just how to make sure that it's fully functional. So fully functional outdoor kitchen design. So I'll send a follow-up to everybody who is here so that you can sign up for next week. And like I mentioned, I'll send you all of the links to all of the panelists here as well so that you can check out all of their amazing work. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.